Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name's Tyler and I just do consistent content on all things relating hockey in the AHL overall. And yes, the qualifying rounds start this weekend. Finally, we've been waiting for this for so long. Exhibition games, as we know, started, and hockey being back is just the best feeling. I don't know what else to describe it truly. But as hockey fans, we have never seen this kind of 2014 format before. So much uncertainty, a lot is expected and unexpected at the same time. We don't know how a lot of these series are going to fare with these guys being off for months as well, really trying to get back in a groove. Who knows how long it's going to take, and it's only a best of 5 series, so really anything can happen. And yes, I have done this kind of prediction video before months ago when the 2014 format first came out, and I got plenty of love, a bunch of views there. I really appreciate it for anyone that saw that has seen this now, but a lot has changed over that time, not just on my channel, but in the NHL. I don't feel the same about certain series in which I had the winners of those qualifying rounds as I do now. I definitely changed my opinion on certain ones, not just because of injuries, but also guys coming back in the lineup sooner than expected per se, goaltending situations, all those things factored in. But without further ado, let's get right into the video. But if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button if you like this kind of hockey content. I'm so close to 300 subscribers, so any love would really be appreciated. Trust me when I say it's only the beginning of a lot and amazing and great things happen on this channel. I'm constantly adapting, constantly getting better with all my skills between editing, having the right camera, the mic, all those great things. I'm just constantly learning to get better with my overall channel, and I really appreciate everyone that has been on the road with me thus far. But without further ado, let's start with our first matchup. Starting off in the Eastern Conference, we have the Toronto Maple Leafs, the 8th seed, facing off against the 9th seed, Columbus Blue Jackets. Oh boy, am I excited for this series. It isn't nearly as clear-cut as you might think it is. Yes, you might think Toronto's going to blow the Columbus Blue Jackets out because they have that offense. Yes, you might think the Blue Jackets are going to steamroll the Leafs because of how well that defense is. I don't think either of those things are going to happen. I think when you look at these teams, of course, they are so polar opposite, which makes this such an interesting matchup because, of course, the Toronto Maple Leafs being a top 5 offense in the AHL this season and the Columbus Blue Jackets being a top 5 defense in the AHL this season. That's a huge gap between the two, between their offenses and defenses by far. But when you look at the Toronto Maple Leafs, yes, you have Austin Matthews, 47 plus, almost close to, really would have had 50 plus goals if we're being honest, if we had a full season most likely. Amazing season, really showing what he can do when playing a full season, or at least close to one. He's only getting better, one of the best shooters, if not the best shooter in the AHL today. And then you have, of course, Mitch Marner picking up where he's left off last year. And Willie Nylander, 30 plus goals, looking very strong. Zach Hyman, who's a great glue guy, I really like his game. Ilya Mikheyev, who I'm a big fan of. I've done previous videos talking about him. Leafs fans, you would probably enjoy that if you haven't seen that. Really love his game, especially leading up until his injury. I was really liking what I was seeing from him in that top 6/top 9. And there are plenty of other guys on that roster like John Tavares, who knows what he can do. He's definitely one that you love to have a back-to-back of Tavares and Matthews if they're not playing on the same line together per se. But overall, just fantastic offense when it comes to the Toronto Maple Leafs. So many weapons there. But then when it comes to the Columbus Blue Jackets, it's polar opposite. It really is. You have Oliver Bjorkstrand, who is one of the better goal scorers in the NHL that doesn't really get enough recognition. He has dealt with some injuries too. Pierre-Luc Dubois, a very strong centerman, looking like he is definitely the centerman, number 1 centerman of the future for the Columbus Blue Jackets. And then you have other guys there like Gustav Nyquist, who can produce 20 plus goals. But then after that, everything kind of starts to fall apart, unfortunately. They've dealt with plenty of injuries. They've lost so many guys in the offseason, as we know. But that defense is spectacular with the likes of Seth Jones and Zach Werenski. Werenski with 20 plus goals this year was nuts. And that goaltending with the Latvian phenom Elvis Merzlikins came out of nowhere this year in relief for Jonas Korpisalo. 5 shutouts, ridiculous overall stats. He definitely should be the starter in this series. But then you have the Toronto Maple Leafs with, of course, Morgan Rielly on the blue line leading the way, but Freddie Anderson in net. Even though the defense definitely goes to Columbus, I think Toronto's going to win this series in 5. Them having a slight advantage playing in Toronto, being familiar with the ice, being more comfortable than any other team, of course, in that hub city. But besides that, I think Toronto is just definitely going to play well. I think they're going to take advantage of the situation, having fans around, less pressure on them too, and going up against Columbus will be no easy task. I think it will be a tough series, but in the end, I think the offense will prevail here and the Maple Leafs will win in 5 games. Next up, you have the 5th seed Pittsburgh Penguins facing off against the 12th seed Montreal Canadiens. All right, Habs fans, I'm sorry, you're probably not going to like what I'm about to say, but this is without question the most lopsided series in all these qualifying rounds. The Pittsburgh Penguins, I've had all season long as a possible cup favorite. What they have been able to do with all the adversities and injuries that they have faced this year has truly been remarkable. Mike Sullivan, one of the most underrated coaches in the AHL this year, has been amazing with whoever is in the lineup, taking out Sidney Crosby, who was out for a while. Of course, Evgeny Malkin stepped up as per usual. And then, of course, you have Jake Gensel, who was out with injury, 40-plus goal scorer, of course. He's back now healthy. That is insane. But while he was out, so many guys stepped up, including the likes of course, Brian Rust, having a career highs in goals, assists, and points this year. Then you bring in guys like Jason Zucker at the trade deadline from the Minnesota Wild, another bona fide 20-plus goal scorer. There's so many weapons on this offense. Patrick Hornquist, who's really strong come playoff time, such a snarly player to go up against, really can do great in the offensive and defensive zone, make things happen. There are just so many weapons on this offense besides Malkin and Crosby, so having everyone healthy is just so scary to look at. I don't see how many teams are going to get through the Pens at all. I think they're going to have a deep run. And that defense, too, they've dealt with plenty of injuries, but it's still stepped up. Chris Letang putting up the points. John Marino looking like one of the best defensemen in the AHL already. Easily a top 15, if not a top 20 in my book for this past season when it comes to actual defensive play. He really was looking superb as a rookie. And that goaltending situation, Matt Murray slumping earlier in the season. Tristan Jarry comes out of nowhere, does amazing for them. It's going to be very interesting to see who starts come the qualifying round. So if you're a fan of the Pens, let me know who you think is going to start game one if it hasn't been announced already. But then we get to the Habs. And the Habs, I just don't see them doing anything in this series. I'm sorry. Nick Suzuki, I love the guy. Rookie, 40-plus points for the centerman. Looking great for the future. They have a promising future. They have a great prospect pool, the Habs, but I just don't trust their roster right now. Between guys like Max Domi, Jonathan Drouin, Philip Deneau, Yoel Armia, the list goes on and on. I just don't think it's enough to go up against this stacked Pittsburgh Penguins team. So I'm sorry, Montreal Canadiens fans. This is nothing personal. I think your time will come. I just don't think it's this year. So because of that, I'm taking the Pittsburgh Penguins in 3 games. For the next series, we have, of course, the 7th seed New York Islanders facing off against the 10th seed Florida Panthers. This is another really interesting matchup. I'm looking forward to it. If you don't know, they did face off against each other. I believe back in 2017 was the last time they played each other in the playoffs. Last time the Panthers were even in the playoffs, they lost in that series against the Islanders. But a lot's changed since then. And this is another situation where really opposite, where the Islanders are definitely a better defensive team than the Panthers, no question, but the Panthers are without question the better offensive team. Panthers, if you look at that offense, Jonathan Huberdeau, one of the most underrated players in the league. I don't know how, besides the fact that him just playing in Florida, one of the best winners in all of the NHL. So fantastic, not just in the offensive zone, but defensive zone. Alexander Barkov, an amazing two-way centerman as well, truly on an elite level at this point. Evgeny Dadonov, Mike Hoffman, the list goes on and on. There's so many great weapons on that offense, and that defense is where things get really shaky. Of course, Keith Yandle, a veteran, never misses a game, puts up the points on the special team especially. And then you have Aaron Ekblad, who has been very solid, but a little shaky at times too. I just don't trust that defense. And Sergei Bobrovsky, who we all thought he was going to be the next big thing for the Florida Panthers when it comes to goaltending, signing that massive contract with them, and it has looked absolutely terrible thus far. And I'm really worried from seeing how he just played in the exhibition game, if he's going to be able to turn it on come playoff time. So then you have the Islanders, they don't have nearly as good of an offense, statistically speaking. Matt Barzal is fantastic, but guys like Anders Lee especially need to step up if the Islanders want to get anywhere this year. Their captain needs to lead the way. He has done in the past. He needs to do it now, especially at a playoff type level. Then you have guys like Anthony Beauvillier, who's a very underrated player for them, and other guys in that lineup, whether it be the likes of not just Anders Lee, but Brock Nelson, and in that bottom 6-2, Derek Brassard has been solid. There's a lot of pieces there to make things happen. That defense is definitely a lot better, no question, between having guys like Devon Tays, Pelech, even guys when they acquired Andy Green, the veteran, the captain from the New Jersey Devils, solid for them. They have a lot of pieces on that defense as well, and the goaltending between, of course, Semyon Varlamov and Thomas Greiss, that's definitely a big what if too. I don't know who's going to get more of the playing time than others, so this is a very tough series. I really think it can go either way, but because of the fact that I'm not confident in Sergei Bobrovsky, unless he proves it to me, and we'll find out, I have the Islanders winning in 5. If Bobrovsky does not step up, I don't see how the Panthers get anywhere, just because of the Islanders are a much better overall sound team, but you can't discredit the fact that the Panthers do now have a coach that knows what it takes to win in Coach Quenneville. I think he's really going to do fantastic for them come this playoff mentality type time. So anything can happen. This really is a coin flip for me, but I think the Islanders are the safest pick, knowing that they have a more reliable goaltending tandem than the Panthers from what we've seen with Bobrovsky thus far. Next up, we have the 6th seed Carolina Hurricanes versus my 11th seed New York Rangers. Oh, you already know I'm excited for this one as a Rangers fan, obviously, and I'm a big fan of the Carolina Hurricanes. They're such a fun team to watch. I've been rooting for them, the bunch of jerks over the past year and a half when they started that movement. Were great, had a deep run in the playoffs last year, and I just love that roster. But this is going to be, if not the most electric, then one of the most electrifying qualifying rounds you will see by far. These rosters are fantastic, completely loaded on offense and defense when it comes to scoring, but things are going to be very interesting. You have the Rangers, of course, Artemi Panarin, who I think should win the Hart. Amazing overall player, was fantastic in his debut season with them. Mika Zibanejad, a solidified number 1 centerman. Amazing 40-plus goal season for him in not even 60 games. Ridiculous. So many weapons and so much youth on this offense, too, with guys like Kaapo Kakko, who is really looking good in camp and in the exhibition game, coming back from being months off from when the season was paused. So many weapons on that offense. Chris Kreider, bona fide 20-plus goal scorer. Pavel Buchnevich can put up the points as well. There's a lot of things I like in this offense, and Filipino, who I'm a big fan of as well. I really love this Rangers roster. I'm so excited for what the future holds for them. I think they have an amazing future for sure. And that defense with guys like Adam Fox, Tony DeAngelo, Jacob Trouba, Ryan Lindgren, the list goes on and on. I love it. I really do. It's not fantastic at all. It's been one of the worst defenses in the league this year, but they definitely did get better as the season went on. And Adam Fox is already looking like a top 10 defenseman in the NHL this season, because statistically speaking, he was from a defensive analytical standpoint, especially besides fact of playing out 40-plus points. But that goaltending situation, who's going to start? Is it going to be the rookie phenom and Igor Shesterkin, who I've been so happy to watch leading up to him playing, going when he was drafted 6 years ago. So he was so coveted, and for good reason. Then you have, of course, the Kane Henrik Lundqvist. Is he going to get one last run with the Rangers, assuming this may very well be his last run with the Rangers team, assuming if they buy him out or if he retires, whatever it may be. And then Alexander Georgiev, another very solid goaltender. They have a 3-headed goalie monster there in New York, so it's going to be interesting to see who starts, and whoever does will have a short leash. But then you have the Carolina Hurricanes, who they have a great roster too. Sebastian Aho, amazing young centerman in the AHL, one of the best already. Then of course you have other guys like Teuvo Teravainen, so underrated, such an amazing overall playmaker. And then you have Andrei Svechnikov, who's going to be something elite in the NHL. He really has that potential. He looks fantastic. Then if you go throughout that lineup and you get to that defense, especially, oh baby, Jacob Slavin, the best defenseman in the NHL. Count me on that. If you disagree with me, let me know why, because look up his stats, look up his defensive stats. He is elite level. He is absolutely amazing. He's so underrated. Dougie Hamilton, fantastic. Norris caliber pace. Brett Pesce, another great stay-at-home defenseman too. So many weapons, but Pesce and Hamilton look like they will be out for that qualifying round. So that is a huge hole that they have to fill. Yes, they have Brady Shea that they acquired from the Rangers, ironically. And of course, they have Jake Gardner. They have Hayden Fleury. They have a bunch of guys on that defense, and Joel Edmondson, who I do like. But I'm really worried now that they don't have two of their better defensemen, and not just Dougie, who is a dynamic player, but Brett Pesce, who really goes under the radar with how awesome he is in the defensive zone. And you have that tandem between, of course, Mrazek and Reimer. It probably will be Mrazek starting, of course, a very solid goaltender. But I really think because of losing both Dougie and Pesce, I have to go with the Rangers in 5 here, and I say that unbiasedly. I'll be perfectly happy if Carolina wins that series. The Rangers will have a chance for that first overall pick, and same thing. But honestly, I think the Rangers are going to win this in 5. I think it's going to be really close. I think it's going to be so fun to watch, and either way, I'm going to be happy in the end because I'm a fan of both teams, with the Rangers, of course, being my favorite, and Carolina just being such a fun team to watch, especially over the past couple of years and going forward for sure. Now on to the Western Conference, where we have the 8th seed Calgary Flames facing off against the 9th seed Winnipeg Jets. This is going to be a fun series too, and this one I think is definitely another series where it's more clear-cut, and here's why. You have the Calgary Flames, Matthew Tkachuk, who I'm so hyped to see in a playoff-type mentality. If Flames, for whatever reason, to make playoffs, Kachuk is going to be a huge part of it, and he's just a snarly other player that you love to hate. Truly, he's just ridiculous. He can put up the points, put up the goals, but he's so strong in his defensive zone and in his overall play. He is easy to get in the minds of the opposing team for sure. That's been evident this past year. But you have other weapons. Johnny Hockey, is he going to step up? He's definitely had a down year. Sean Monahan, same thing. Elias Lindholm, a very strong goal scorer there. They have plenty of weapons. Mikael Backlund, a very underrated two-way centerman in the game, and that defense. You have plenty of weapons too, led by the captain Mark Giordano, and that goaltending tandem is definitely more of a question mark between David Rittich and Cam Talbot, who I'm a big fan of, obviously, as being a former Ranger. They've been solid, but I'm not sure if that's enough, because when you look at the Calgary Flames, they are in definitely a more defensive type mentality, since of course they fired Bill Peters earlier this year and brought in their new head coach. They definitely haven't put up the offensive production like they have in the past couple years, and I don't know if that's going to be good for them, truly. And then you get the Winnipeg Jets. The Jets haven't been putting up the offense that was expected of them. Their defense is better, statistically speaking. Their defense is ranked at 11th when the Jets' offense is definitely lower than what their defense is surprising. But the big reason why their defense is standing out is because of Connor Hellebuyck. That's the biggest reason why he should be the Vezina winner this year. He was absolutely electric in a bounce back year for them. But that defense has definitely been not great, but not terrible at times either. Neil Pionk looking solid for them. Josh Morrissey has always been solid. And some younger guys in that lineup too, even with them losing that whole right side defense with the guys like Jacob Trouba, of course, with the Rangers now. Justin Byfuglien, who's not in the league currently, and Ben Chiarot. So they lost a lot of weapons, but you have to look at having not just Patrick Laine, who even though he isn't putting up the goals, he is putting up more of the points and assists. Kyle Connor, who's so underrated. I think he's going to be huge for them. Their best overall player this year, in my opinion. Mark Scheifele, a very strong #1 centerman in the league. Blake Wheeler leading the way, their captain, and just so many other weapons. Nikolai Ehlers as well. They have plenty of pieces there, and I really think the Winnipeg Jets are going to win this series in 4. I don't think it's going to be that close. I'm sorry, Flames fans, if you see this. I just don't feel confident enough in that offense and that goaltending. If Johnny Hockey doesn't step up especially, I don't know who else is going to bring them over that hump against this very strong Winnipeg Jets team. Next up, you have the 5th seed Edmonton Oilers facing off against the 12th seed in the Chicago Blackhawks. This is probably going to be another one of the most entertaining series you'll see in the qualifying rounds because of how studied these offenses are. You have the Chicago Blackhawks, who definitely had an up and down year. The defense doesn't look great at all, but they have had some younger guys step up. Adam Boqvist is looking solid. He looks like he will be the future for them for sure. And then you look at that goaltending too. That is a big question mark. Of course, having guys like Corey Crawford, who really, we don't know if he's going to be playing at his full caliber, of course. He did have COVID, I believe, but I think he is back now. And having Malcolm Subban and not Robin Lehner, who they trade at the trade deadline, I don't feel confident in that at all. But you get that offense, that's where things change. You have the likes of Patrick Kane right here. Whoa. Get thrown off here. Yeah, Patrick Kane there, and he can still put up the points, no question. He's still an amazing overall player, one of the best to do it. Jonathan Toews, who can still put up the points, has had a very strong season after some kind of up and down years as for the Chicago Blackhawks captain. Dominik Kubalik, the rookie phenom, really came out of nowhere this year, 30-plus goals, and had 2 goals in his exhibition game the other night, really looking strong. Alex DeBrincat, who can put up the goal scoring. He has been on a little bit of a slump this year, but I fully expect him to spark back up. Dylan Strome can put up the points. There are plenty of guys in that offense that I feel comfortable with, but they still don't match the likes of Edmonton Oilers when it comes to just Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. When you look at this Edmonton Oilers roster, you finally have Connor McDavid back in a playoff-type atmosphere. Even though it isn't really playoffs, putting him in a chance to go into the playoffs, you fully expect him to be lights out. He just had a couple goals the other night in their exhibition game. Leon Draisaitl, who was, of course, the point leader this past year in the NHL, and looks like he will very well at least win one award come the award time for the NHL. Amazing overall season with over 100 points, of course. And then you have this offense that finally has guys around McDavid that can keep up with him. Killer Yamamoto finally coming into his own as an NHL regular, scored the other night too. I'm really excited to see what he can do. I think he's going to be a huge part of Edmonton's success going forward. Then you have guys like Tyler Ennis and Andreas Athanasiou, who, while they aren't amazing by any means, they can put up the points. They're reliable 20-plus goal scorers for the most part, especially Athanasiou's case, and he's speedy. He's one of the faster guys in the AHL. Put them on the likes of McDavid and good things are going to happen. So they finally have some pieces I'm feeling more comfortable with, and that defense led the like with Oscar Klefbom when healthy is fantastic. Had a very strong season, both two-way, 5-on-5 and on that power play as a power play quarterback, of course, and just overall I'm really excited. Then you have guys like Ethan Barron, Philip Broberg, who's very interesting, very controversial defenseman. I don't know if he's playing or not, so Oilers fans, let me know in the comments below if you will be. But then you get to the goaltending, of course, and you have of course the almost 40-year-old, if not 40-year-old and Mike Smith, and of course their other goaltender and Mikko Koskinen. So overall, between those two, it's going to be interesting because I don't feel necessarily overly confident with either of them, but I think just because of having the likes of Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, that's going to take the Oilers over the edge. I fully expect them to win that series for sure, and I think they'll do it in 5 games. It's definitely going to be a tight one given the fact that their defenses are definitely a little suspect, but the Oilers do have an upper hand. I think they're going to win in 5, and I think McDavid and Draisaitl for sure are going to lead the way into a deep playoff run. Dave Tippett, seasoned head coach, Ken Holland, their GM, finally bringing more stability and structure to this Edmonton Oilers team that has desperately been needing it. They finally get it, and I think this is the year for them where they finally have a somewhat, if not deep, playoff run. Next up, we have the 7th seed Vancouver Canucks facing off against the 10th seed Minnesota Wild. Now, this is a series that some people aren't as interested in, but I sure as heck am, and that's because of the Vancouver Canucks especially. I'm really liking their roster this year. Elias Pettersson leading the way like he has for so long now in his young career already. And then you have JT Miller coming out of nowhere in his debut season with the Vancouver Canucks, 70+ points. Fantastic for them. Bo Horvat, their newly crowned captain, very solid two-way centerman, of course. They have plenty of pieces in that offense, along the likes of course, Brock Besser, who has been down this year in goal scoring, but I fully expect him to pick up the pace sooner rather than later. Tyler Toffoli, another reliable 20-plus goal scorer that they got at the trade deadline. And they have plenty of other pieces in that offense, depth-wise, that is looking much stronger than it has in the past couple years. And that defense led along the likes of Quinn Hughes, an amazing overall rookie, looking like one of the best young defensemen in the AHL today and going forward, was fantastic. Led the league in points among rookies, especially as a defenseman. He was the first to do so since Brian Leetch back in the 89 and 90 season when Leach was a rookie. Really awesome there, but he had over 50 points. That was crazy as a defenseman. Really looking amazing for them, especially as that power play quarterback and on 5-on-5 as well. But then you get to the goaltending with Jacob Markstrom, who many believe should have been a Vezina finalist, and I don't blame him. He came out of nowhere this year for them, really looking strong, putting up great numbers. And then you of course have Thatcher Demko, who looks like he will be the goalie of the future, but I still expect Markstrom to start in this series for sure. But then you get to the Wild, and the Wild, they don't have an identity to me. You know, you have guys in that lineup, whether it be Eric Stahl, who's still putting up the points, Zach Parise, same thing, Ryan Suter, who's still solid, but then you have Matt Dumbo, who's very solid too as a two-way defenseman. And of course, I don't know why I'm blanking on his name on their defense, so I'm going to skip him, but you can put in the comments below. You know who I'm talking about. It was a hefty contract with the Wild. He's very strong for them. And they have plenty of other weapons there, but their offense, I just don't feel that comfortable with. Even with Kevin Fiala really looking fantastic for them this year, I shouldn't say coming out of nowhere, but really taking that next step for them since being traded by the Nashville Predators a year ago. And overall, their goaltending situation too between Alex Stalock and Devin Dubnyk, I just don't trust it. So because of those reasons, I'm going to take the Vancouver Canucks, and I'm going to take the Canucks in 4. I think the Canucks are really going to win this series in 4, maybe even 5, but I think 4, I feel comfortable with that. I'm sorry, Wild fans, if you see this. You will have your time, trust me. I just don't think it's there yet. You're still in this kind of rebuild / retool. I just don't feel comfortable enough to say that they're going to go up against the Vancouver Canucks and really win that series in easy fashion. I just don't see it happening. But Matt Zuccarello, who I'm a huge fan of as a Rangers fan, I hope he does well for the Wild, obviously. But he has had a down year for the Wild as well. And like I said, I just don't feel confident in this Wild team. So Vancouver Canucks it is. And last but not least, we have the 6th seed Nashville Predators facing off against the 11th seed Arizona Coyotes. This is a very interesting series too, when you have two goaltending tandems that are going to be fun to watch for sure, between of course the Coyotes having both Darcy Kemper, who is really looking strong up till he got hurt, and Antti Raanta, who has been solid but he has dealt with plenty of injuries as well. And then the Nashville Predators, Pekka Rinne not playing up to par this year, but UC Saros really looking strong at times. It's going to be interesting to see who starts for that series. So if you're a Preds fan and watch this, let me know in the comments below who you think is going to start for the Preds. We all know they have Matt Duchene, they have Philip Forsberg, they have Victor Arvidsson. They have plenty of guys in that offense that can contribute, but it hasn't been amazing this year at all. They've had a roller coaster year, fired Peter Laviolette, of course, brought in the head coach, John Hines from the Devils, and I don't love that roster at all. I think that they have the experience, they have the depth, but defensively, which is what the Preds have been known for so long, haven't been a strong defensive team this year, and that worries me. Roman Josi had an amazing overall season with 60-plus points as their captain on defense, but I don't know if that's going to be enough against this Coyotes team who, yes, they've had a lot of controversy lately. We all know what happened with, of course, their GM and Chayka, however you say it, of course, stepping down. It was very odd. There's a lot more that is going to come out with that, I assure you. But I think with everything that has happened with the Coyotes this year, they have so much chips on their shoulders, and I think they're going to take advantage of it. When is the time to take advantage of the situation against a Nashville Predators team that has looked its worst in quite a while? Now's the time. You know, the Coyotes have been doubted for so long now as they're not a playoff team. They can't get over that hump. The offense has definitely not been great, but I think that they have the chance to prove it, and I think they're going to win in 5. I could be completely wrong here. Experience could go against them, but I think between having the likes of Clayton Keller, I'm a big fan of, Taylor Hall, who has something to improve, wanting to get a good contract, of course, in free agency, assuming he doesn't resign with the Coyotes, even though he might. I think that they have a lot to prove there. I think Phil Kessel might still be able to prove some offense, and they have some other weapons there in that bottom 6, and that defense looks strong. I'm a big fan of a lot of pieces they have there, especially Jacob Chychrun. I'm a big fan of his. He's a very underrated defenseman in the NHL. Oliver Ekman-Larsson can still put up the points for them when needed, and that goaltending looks strong. So, like I said, this one is more of a coin flip as well, but I'm taking the Coyotes in 5 games. But that's going to conclude this video, so let me know what you think in the comments below. Did you agree with my picks or not? I would love to hear it, and if you have different ones, let me know what yours are. I would really love to hear it. And if you haven't checked out my previous videos, make sure you do right down here below. I'd really appreciate it again. And thank you all again so much, guys. I really appreciate it. Hit like, subscribe, comment if you like this kind of hockey content, and I'll be back in a day or two.